Hello, and welcome to what I think is going to be the second to last in this series of making a Dalek in Blender. So we've modeled it, we've textured it, and now we're going to rig it so we can animate it, or just pose it in a much more easy way. Hopefully this has been a useful series for you. If so, please let me know, and if not, also please let me know, because then I know what to fix for next time. And I'd really love to see what you've done with this, so please do comment and show me your Daleks, because there's never a bad time to see a Dalek. So we are going to rig the Dalek. Right now, it's a bit of a tricky situation. If you did want to animate just the Dalek in general, you'd have to press A, select everything, grab Y, move him over there, R, rotate Z, move him that way, grab Y, then Y again if you think you need to move him in local axis, but again, that screws everything up. So yeah, it's just become a bit of a pig. So the easiest way of doing this is setting up an empty so we can control the whole thing. And then after we can control the whole Dalek, we're going to set up some controls for the plunger, the gun, the eye, and the dome. But we'll do the master one first. So if you modeled everything like I have, the origin of every object should be right at the center of the world, which isn't going to be particularly helpful, but we can sort that out as we do it. So first things first, let's set up our master control object. So we're going to use something called an empty. And an empty is an object that exists in the scene, but won't render, it won't get in the way of any lights or shadows. It's just there as a kind of controller object. So we're going to Shift A, and then instead of adding a mesh or a curve, we're going to scroll down to empty, and we have all these different options. Now for the master controller, I like to use a cube, just because it's nice and visible. So cube. Now technically we can leave it like this, but I don't want to. So let's press 1, go into front view, and we're going to grab him on the Z axis, just move it up. So sort of halfway up, and then scale Z. So a bit of fine tuning. Just move him around, scale Z. That should do it. And then we're going to scale X, so it's just slightly bigger than the Dalek that way. That's good. And then go into 3, grab Y, bring him forward a little bit, and then scale Y, just so he's slightly bigger than the Dalek. GY, SY, that should be fine. This is a completely unnecessary step. I just like having it around the Dalek so I can see it. You can do this with just arrows at the bottom. You can do it with what they call just a plane axis, which we'll do for other objects. But for now, controlling the Dalek, I like having it the size of the Dalek. So it's like the Dalek's in a little controller cage. So on the empty, we're going to double click that. We're going to call it Mark 3 Dalek Controller. That's good. And then let's just deselect it, and then press A to select everything. And then let's just shift click this empty we've just created. Oop, maybe not. Let's just shift click him again. We just want him to be the last thing we've selected. And then press Control and P and set parent to object with keep transform. So now everything looks exactly the same, but if we select the Dalek controller, you can see all the objects are now a child of this empty. And if we want to move them around, we just have to select this empty, GY, and it selects everything. So we can rotate Z, then GYY, and then move them that way. Let's undo that. Now, this is quite helpful, but there are a few drawbacks. So right now, if we just press G, you can see you can move them up and down, side to side. You'll very, very rarely want the Dalek to go on the Z axis. So what we can do first, over in our transform properties, is just lock the Z location. So now if we G, it just moves around the floor. And if you need to get it going up or down, you can unlock that axis, but for the most part, you can just leave it like that. And then also for the rotation, we want them to be able to spin around on the Z axis, because that's quite a useful location or rotation for the Dalek to have. So we can lock the X and the Y. And now if we grab and rotate, we're kind of constrained to a few different areas. And really, that is the basis of the whole animation. So there are more interesting ways of animating this and just keyframing him. And I'll show you how to do that at the end. But right now, that is our first empty setup. We've got the Dalek ready to go. Okay, so the next thing I want to be able to do is have him be able to look up and down. So what we need is for this object here, we've called it iPivot, to be able to rotate up and down, which would be the x-axis. So if we do R and then X, you see it is moving up and down, but very much not in the right way. And that's because the object origin of every object is still set here at the world origin. So it's trying to rotate off this point. What we need to do is tab into edit mode. And then this is of the iPivot. And then we want to select this face. And we want to select this face here. And then Shift S, cursor to selected. Tab out of that. Object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now, if we rotate RX, you see he goes up and down in the right direction. Now what we want to do is for all these objects to be able to follow it. So we do that by parenting the objects. Now we need to do this in a kind of specific order. So let's go from the eye. We're going to shift click this little clear tube, Control P, and then set parent to object, keep transform. And then we're going to grab this inner tube and then Control Shift the outer tube, Control P, object, keep transform. Then these eye discs, we're going to shift click the outer tube, Control P, object, keep transform. And then we're going to take this outer tube. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough today, by the way. We're going to shift click this eye pivot, this eye stalk stage 1, Control P, object, keep transform. And then finally, we're going to grab this object here and then click the eye pivot, shift click the eye pivot, Control P, object, keep transform. So now if we R and then X, you see everything moves along with the eye pivot. Now you can control this with an empty. Sometimes it's easier. With this kind of object, it might not be massively necessary. So if you want, you can add an empty and then parent the eye pivot to the empty. At the moment, I don't. Yeah, let's do it. Let's just do it. So Shift A, empty. This time we're going to add a plane axis there. So that's right in the middle of the eye pivot. We're going to take the eye pivot here. We're going to shift click and we're going to Control P, object, keep transform. And let's call this eye tilt. Now we need to apply some constraints to this because as you can see, if you click the eye tilt, if we R and then X, there's nothing to stop it from going inside itself. And also it can rotate left and right, which we really don't want it to. So again, we can play with these coordinates here. We can lock these off. But I'd find probably the best way of doing it. If we go into this panel on the side, we've got this object constraint properties. Let's click that and make sure we've got our eye tilt selected. We're going to add an object constraint and we're going to limit rotation. Now, we don't want it going left or right or side to side, so we can limit the Y and the Z rotation to 0 degrees. So now if you rotate, you can literally only go up or down. But again, we want to see how far it can go up. Is this in the right place? Have I moved it? No, he's in the right place. Okay. So again, with our empty selected, it's not the object, but the empty, we're going to limit the X. So at the moment it's set to 0 each way, but let's change that. So the minimum is how far, I think the minimum is how far it can go up. So let's change that to minus 15. Let's just see what that takes it. It's glitching a bit, but yeah, it's minus 15 up. And then maximum, let's make this 15. Yeah, that's the right amount of looking down. Let's change the minimum to minus 30. So now he can look up like that and look down like that. And that should be okay. Cool. Okie dokes. So now we've got the eye pivot set up. But if we turn this dome object, well, one, you can see it's nowhere near where it should be rotating from. But we also want all the objects of the dome, including the eye pivot, to follow it. So let's go into, we want to isolate the dome basically. So click on the dome, go / so we can just look at that. Tab into edit mode, double tap A to deselect everything, 3 for face mode, grab this face here, Shift S, cursor to selected, tab out of edit mode, object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. Cool. Let's go back into everything. So / again so we can see all the objects. Oh, there is a plane going over. So let's start by grabbing... How am I going to... I know how I'm going to do this. So right. So if I go RZ, you can see the dome rotates, but we need everything attached to it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take these lights. So grab the, I can't remember what we've called them. Hold on. Dome lights, and then shift click the dome, Control P, set parent to object, keep transform. And let's just hide these for a moment because we've got these bulbs. So again, grab that, grab the dome, Control P, object, keep transform, and then Alt H to unhide everything. And now the cursor's still in the right place. We want to add another empty. So Shift A, add a plane axis, and we're going to call it dome rotation. And then we're going to take the dome and we're going to shift click the dome rotation empty, Control P, and object, keep transform. And now what we're going to do is take the eye tilt and we're going to shift click the dome rotation empty, then Control P, set parent to object, keep transform. So now if I rotate the dome, oh, I think I know why. Hold on, let's go back into our eye pivot empty. We want to change this from the owner from world space to local space. And now let's rotate our dome again. There we go. Yeah, now that moves properly. Lovely. In fact, I'm going to change this from dome rotation to dome controller. And then we are going to grab our dome controller, shift click our master controller, and then Shift P, object, keep transform. So now when we move our master object, we can also turn him round and have him look up. So we can edit all these things separately, but we can get him moving his head and looking up and down. And that's lovely. So let's just apply some constraints to this dome. So add object constraint, limit rotation, and we only want him to be able to move in the Z direction. So let's just limit X and Y. That's good. So now we can spin him round. Oop, I'm on the wrong object. Where are we? Dome controller. It's because I put the constraints in the wrong bit. I put the constraints on the dome rather than the controller. Dome controller, add object constraints, limit rotation, limit X and Y. So let's just spin him round. There we go. And everything moves with him. Cool. So now we're going to work on the gun stick, and I want to do this slightly differently. So again, let's just Shift S, cursor to world origin, and we are going to parent the gun and the little rods to the gun ball here. So take our gun rods, shift click the gun, Control P, object, keep transform, and then, before we do that actually, while we're doing it, so let's just click our gun and then shift click the gun ball, Control P, object, keep transform, but our origin's in the wrong place, so let's just object, Shift S, cursor to selected. Oh no, we need to tab into it. Select A to select everything, Shift S, cursor to selected, tab out of edit mode, object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now it moves around from this pivot point. What I want to do is give the gun something to look at. So rather than having to control it from this point here, I want it to point towards a target. So what I'm going to do is grab the gun, tab into edit mode, double tap A, deselect everything. I'm going to go into face mode with 3. I'm going to shift click this inner layer, this inner ring here. Shift S, cursor to selected. Now we're going to shift A, add another empty. We're going to add a sphere, and that's way too big. So let's just scale that down. And let's just grab Y, move them over here. Now we want this gun to be permanently looking at this sphere. So easiest way of doing that, let's take our gun ball. We're going to add an object constraint, and it needs to be, is it track 2? Hold on. So track, yep, let's select track 2, and then target object, this empty here. No. Oh, yes, it is. And then we need to change the track axis. I think it's -Y. Yep, it is. And then up, we want to be Z. So over here, make sure it's set to -Y in the track axis, and up is Z. Now, if we move this around, see the gun follows it. So for example, the doctor's all the way over there. So instead of having to kind of manually keyframe this ball, we can just go whoop, grab, and then over there. And over there, and over there. Which is excellent. So Control Z to undo that. And then let's just rename this empty as gun target. And we want the gun target to go with our master controller. So with our gun target selected, shift click, master control, Control P, object keep transform. So again, now we can move the Dalek along. This goes with it, but we can also move this freely. So say over there, and then move him, grab Y, move him along, and then move that over there. But see, obviously this is way too much, so we need to constrain the rotation again. So let's click our arm ball here. So it's already got the track 2 constraint on it, but let's also add a rotation constraint. So limit rotation. We need to limit on the X, Y, and Z. So right now, if I move this arm ball, you see nothing happens. But let's go back here and let's limit it to about 45 degrees either way. So min should be minus, let's go 30, maximum 30. So now X, its rotation's a little screwed up, hold on. Oh no, it's not. That's fine. So then Y, let's change minimum to -30 and max to 30, and Z -30 and max to 30. Again, owner, we want to change that to local space. So then again, if we move this guy around, you can see it doesn't go inside itself. Once it reaches a certain level, it can't go any further, no matter where you drag this target. That's cool. So we've got the gun setup, we have got the dome rotation setup, and we have got the eye pivot setup and our master controller. Okay, so the last thing we want to be able to do is control this plunger arm. So we want it to be able to rotate from the ball, just like the gun, but we also want this section to be able to, spoiler alert, we also want this section to be able to telescope in and out, but we also want it to limit how far it can go out so it doesn't fly off the end. So again, we need to start parenting some objects. So we're going to take this plunger here, and then, oh no, actually I'm going to do this in a different order. So no, I'm not. We're going to take this plunger and then shift click, arm stage 1, Control P, object keep transform, then this part here, shift click here, Control P, object keep transform, and then we're going to grab, we called it arm stage 1, we're going to shift click the arm ball, Control P, object keep transform, and let's just make sure that's doing what I want it to be doing. Grab Y, yes it is, that's following. And again, we need to set the origin of this part up properly. So grab the ball, tab into edit mode, tap A to select everything, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then object, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So let's just ignore that for a minute. So let's focus on this, which we've called arm stage 2. So we're already in object constraint here. So let's add object and constraint and limit location. So we can tick all of these. Let's just make sure it's still moving. No, it's not. Good. So we want to limit how far forward and back it can go. So let's do about minus, grab Y. Yep. So we want it to be able to move about 100 millimeters forward. So let's change this Y position to minus 100. And then if you press grab and Y, or even just grab, you can see it can go forward, but it can't go any further back. So grab Y and it stops there. Doesn't matter how much you drag, it can't go any further. And then minimum, set this to about 20. So we can go now 20 millimeters, nah, it's more than that, 50. So we can go grab 50 millimeters back or 100 millimeters forward. So we can now telescope this arm, which is exactly what we want. Lovely. And then we also need to control the rotation. So right now the rotation is set to this gun ball. So if we are, it's all going to be, oh, I think we need to make sure as well in this object constraint for the arm stage 2, make sure owner is set to local space. So now if we rotate, it tracks perfectly. So we want to give this a target as well, similar to this gun target. So let's select our plunger, tab into edit mode. My God, I've made that dense. That is too much for that object, but well, done now. Right, double tap A, deselect everything. We're going to select this middle, so 1 for vertex mode, select this point here, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then we're going to Shift A, we're going to add an empty, another sphere, and scale that down, and let's just move him slightly out, GY, and then we're going to go into our arm ball, we're going to add an object constraint, track 2, and we're going to pick this empty here. So use our little eyedropper, object empty, and it's all gone weird. So make sure you set your track axis to -Y and your up axis to Z. Now, if you move him around, you see it follows nicely. What I'd love to be able to do, and I don't know how to do it, if I were to grab Y, move him forward, I'd love to be able to have it telescope towards that, but I don't know how to do that. I might just be being very stupid. So if you know how I can do that, please, please, please put it in the comments, because that would be fascinating. But let's just grab Y, drag him over there, drag this second stage, grab, and then move him out. You see he still goes in the direction of that target. It's exactly what we want. And then the last thing we need to do is add some constraints to this. So on the arm ball again, add object constraint, limit rotation. We want it to limit the X, Y, and Z. And then let's do minimum -30, maximum 30, minimum -30, maximum 30, minimum -30, maximum 30. So now we can move this on. Let's rename that to plunger target. You can move him around. But again, as you can see, no matter what we do to it, this won't now go inside itself. So that's great. So we can move, let's control, with the target selected, let's just shift click our controller object, Control P, object, keep transform. And now if we move our master object around, everything goes with it. So now everything is set up properly. We can animate it. We can animate each individual bit. So let's say we want him to look over to his left. So R, while selecting the dome controller, and then just move him over there. And then select our eye pivot. We want him looking down. R, look down. We want the gun to be facing the direction he's looking. So grab that, move him over there and slightly down. And then for some reason, he's doing his plunger in the other direction. So grab X over there. So now we have separate controllers for all the elements. And then you think, oh, he's a bit too close. Just grab the controller, grab Y, move him back. And there we go. let's just undo all of that. There we are. Our Dalek is now rigged, which is very, very exciting. So the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to set up a very, very basic animation that kind of uses all these different things that we've set up. So it's not going to be particularly groundbreaking, but hopefully it'll just show you what we can do. So let's go Shift S, cursor to world origin, just to set everything back. Let's press 7, and we're going to Shift A, add a curve, and we're going to add a path. And let's R90 and grab Y. That's okay. Let's just tab into edit mode. We're going to scale on the Y-axis, just to make it a bit longer. Grab Y, just move him over here. And then we're going to take this point here, right at the end, and just grab X and move him along. So now you see we've got this little incredibly basic curve. And this is going to be the direction our Dalek walks in. So we're going to select our Mark III Dalek controller. We are going to go into our object constraints over here. We're going to add an object constraint, and we're going to select follow path. And then our target, so let's select this little eyedropper, is going to be this NURBS path here. Let's select that. Now he's facing in the wrong direction, so let's fiddle around with these axes. So up axis Z, that's fine. Forward axis, no, Y, no, Z. Z is apparently what we want. You'll find it's never the one that you think it should be. And up axis, let's make him, there we go. So we want the up axis to be Y and the forward axis to be minus Y, because he's coming towards us. And then let's just click animate path. And then if we just get him in the camera into a position where we can see, just press spacebar. Oh, and he's not moving. Okay, that means, oh no, because we haven't ticked follow curve. And again, we're probably going to have to play around with this a little bit. So up axis Z. There we go. So we want forward axis to be minus Y, up axis to be Z. And then just press, let's move him back to frame 1. And press the spacebar. And there he goes. Look at him go. Our frame rate is more than the actual animation. So let's just click on the curve. It's set to path animation, 100 frames. Fair enough. Let's just change our Blender settings to end at 100. And then just press play again. And look at him go. Great. Okay, in fact, while we're here, let's Shift A. We're going to add a camera. And then we're going to Control, Alt, and then 0 on the numpad, which makes the camera, which makes the view our camera. Let's just drag him down a little bit, just so we can see. Let's just leave him there. Let's just press play, so you can see what happens. So he starts there, he moves over, and then he's out of frame. Let's say when he gets to this point, we want him looking at us. So let's go into our objects. Let's find our dome controller. And over here in rotation, so at the moment, the Z rotation is set to 0. So if we hover our mouse over it and press I for insert, and then we're frame 63. Let's go forward to frame, I don't know, 83. And we want to rotate, and then let's have a look. That's probably a little bit too far, actually. Let's undo that. Let's go from frame 45. So let's insert the keyframe there. And then go forward 20 frames. So type in 65. And then we want him to look at us by this point. So in our rotation with the dome controller selected, let's just rotate. And we want to drag him. Oh, this is where Blender can be awkward. Try again. Blender, you are a beautiful piece of software, but you can be very annoying. Let's just type it in here. So rotation, drag him minus, say 51, and then I to insert a keyframe again. Let's just press play, see how that looks. So he goes Oh, there you are. It looks at us. That's probably a bit too quick. So let's move this first keyframe back. I'm not going to be massively precise about this. Let's just move this keyframe back to maybe about 35. So he's noticed us, he looks at us, and he's off. Cool. And then we can also say at this point from frame 35, let's get him looking down slightly. So let's pick our eye tilt. And then again, we want him to rotate on the X axis. So eye to rotate there. Let's go forward, say about 15 frames, and just make him look slightly down. And then eye to lock that. And then go forward another 15 frames. He's still looking at us. But then let's go to frame 70. And then let's eye to insert another keyframe. Go to frame 80. And he's looking up again. So move that to 0. So, oh, I didn't hit. Oh, let's go to frame 80. Move that to 0. And then press I to insert that keyframe. So coming towards us, looks down at us, and then looks up again. Yeah, that classic thing that Daleks do. So that's looking pretty good. I mean, it's not looking good, but it's looking like an animation. And if we go into rendered view, so viewport shading rendered. Oh, have I just killed my blender? I may have. No, I haven't. This is exciting. That's good. And let's just turn off show overlays. There we are. That's all right. Okay. Let's go back to show overlays. And just so we can, let's add a little ground. So cursor is at selected, Shift A, mesh, plane, tab into edit mode, and let's just scale him up 10 times. So now he's just casting a shadow. If we look here, you can see he's on the ground. Again, it's nothing particularly exciting, but here we are. That's fine. Now, the last thing we want to be able to do, because you'll see from watching old Doctor Who, is their gun sticks and plungers are very, very rarely stationary. So what we can do is control it using modifiers. So what we need to do first is go back to frame 1. Let's grab our little gumball here, press 0 to zoom in on it, and then over rotation, let's just press I, and then change. What we don't want to do basically is have to animate every single time the gun kind of goes whoop, whoop, or kind of whoop, 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 whoop. This kind of moves over around. Now I've actually got a feeling I put this in the wrong place, so let's get rid of that keyframe. Don't need it. We need it to be on the target. So grab the target and location. Just press I. And so yeah, what I'm saying is we don't want every time, because there's a person inside it and they're kind of wiggling things around. We don't want them to. We don't have to manually add every keyframe. It sort of wiggles around like that. So what we can do with our gun target selected, instead of timeline down here, we're going to change that to graph editor. And then we need to find gun target animation, object transform, X location, and then let's just bring that up a little bit. So as you can see in this panel here, we've got modifiers. So if we click modifier, add modifier, noise. Now, if we just left it like that, you see it's going bananas. So let's do it from the camera view. So we need to slow that down. So let's take our scale up, which makes the movements jitterier, more jittery. But let's take the strength right down to about 0.05. Let's have a look. It's going to be tricky to see because the camera's moving. You can see he's wiggling around a little bit. Even that's too much. So let's change that. Let's change this to maybe about 0.02. And And let's also do it for the Y location, modifiers, noise, turn the scale right up. In fact, do we need to do it for... I don't think Y is actually doing anything. And Z, modifier, noise, yeah, Z. So let's turn the scale right up. Then the strength massively down. So again, you probably can't see it, but he's moving a little bit. Actually, this is way too much, but just for the purposes of this, it's fine. And then we can do the same for the plunger target if we want. So let's bring this back to our timeline, go back to frame 1, hover over where it says location and press I, and then let's change this here to our graph editor. And again, plunger target animation, object transform, X location, add modifier, noise, bring the scale up. Yeah, bring the scale up to there. Strength all the way down to like 0.2. In fact, let's bring the scale down as well. That just slows all the movements down. Actually, no, it doesn't. It speeds them up. Scale all the way up to maybe about 100. Let's do 100. So it's just a slight bit of wiggle in there. Again, you can't really see it, but it's there. So let's just bring this back to our timeline. Let's bring that down. Let's just change to rendered view. And turn off show overlays. So you can't see any of the empties. You can't really see anything moving, but it's moving. And our Dalek is going past us. There we are. I'm just going to leave that playing. It's quite hypnotic. So obviously this is very, very basic. This is just done in a few minutes. Everything needs a lot more fine-tuning. But everything is rigged now. So the Dalek can look around. It can wave its arms. It can throw his gun stick in the air like he just don't care. Which I'm sure he wouldn't, because he'd be happy to have his gun stick. But yeah, hopefully this has been useful. And in our last tutorial, we're going to animate the emission of the lights, so it'll blink in time with you talking. And then you can combine all of those elements together, and that should be it. So please do like, share, and subscribe. Click the little bell icon to be notified when you have, or when I've done a new video. And I will see you very, very soon.